Hey everyone, welcome back to Dev Parkour. In this video, we're going to talk about unit tests, everybody's favorite topic, and specifically unit testing when it comes to writing parsers. If you couldn't tell from the title of the video, yes, when you're writing a parser, you should be writing unit tests. Though I think I mentioned in the video a couple days ago, I did not, in fact, write unit tests when I wrote this latest parser. That's my bad. I really should have been writing unit tests because honestly there were a couple places where I ran into some challenges, and having unit tests would have helped me figure out probably a little bit quicker why my parser wasn't working. But why? Let's stop talking about why I didn't write unit tests. Let's talk about why you should and why I really should as well. Certainly if you're writing your own parsers by hand, you definitely should write unit tests because parsers are very complex pieces of code, and there's lots of room for error. And unfortunately, when the errors occur, they typically occur very deep in your program or deep in the parsing of whatever input you're trying to parse. And it makes for a very difficult debugging session. Trying to step through that code is you can do it, but it's kind of a nightmare, especially in like a production scenario. If you wrote a little sample program that just exercised one small part of your parser, or just exercised your parser directly, it would be easier to step through, but at that point you're so close to just writing a unit test, you might as well just write a unit test. But even if you're not hand coding your own parser and using a third-party library like I am with nom and Rust, you should still unit test your parsers because you can test their correctness that way much easier. Right? Even though nom is pretty easy to reason through, and the parsers that you write using nom, the syntax, the call structure that you write using nom is fairly easy to read through and then reason about. It's still not 100%. It's still not English, right? So being able to run some automated piece of code that takes a known input and a known output, runs the known input through your code and compares it to the known output is incredibly valuable. In that way, you can test the small pieces of your parser, so that you, especially with nom, because that's kind of the way it's architected, is by building smaller parsers up into larger parsers, composing them into larger parsers. It lends itself really well to the idea of unit testing, because you can take a clause or a statement, or something that's smaller than the full program, and you can unit test that particular parser individually. It is a little bit trickier with some other parsing grammars, especially ones that do some code generation for you. In some of those cases, you do need to parse a full program, but the nice part about that is that most programming languages have ways to create like the minimum testable program. So if you're only testing an if statement, you can pretty easily create a program that just has an if statement and just enough structure to make it a valid program. And while that's not necessarily strictly a unit test, that does have other benefits, like you can test pretty quickly if you accidentally broke something totally unrelated in your parser when you make one small change to, say, how you parse if statements. Yeah, so ultimately, unit tests make for more rapid development of parsers, no matter how you're building them, because you can test the individual components a lot easier, and if something's not working right, you can hone in on exactly why it's not working right. The other advantage to writing unit tests is that when we're writing parsers, we tend to only test positive cases, so programs that are valid in the language we're writing a parser for. But with the unit test, you can create negative tests as well. So create a statement that is completely not valid, but is subtly similar. It seems very similar, and is especially if it turns out that you did misimplement your parser somehow, you can create a negative case to test that your parser actually fails on invalid input. And I will be completely upfront. I do not know if my parser fails on invalid input in the one that I've been writing in Rust. I don't know. It is entirely possible that there are completely invalid SQL statements that would get accepted by my parser. I don't know what the result would be. I don't know what statements, the AST might not make sense, but at least the input would get accepted by the parser. And that's not great. Long term, I want to make sure that my parser accepts only valid SQL statements, and any invalid SQL statements that get sent in are properly rejected. And then eventually I'll have some error handling in the rest of the application. That's the main reason that I haven't implemented the rejection of negative cases quite yet, or I haven't really tested that, is because I don't have great error handling. I think it just bombs right now. If you send in a statement that is not a valid SQL statement, the program crashes. Again, not a great experience, but this is in progress. It's something that's currently under development. So I'm going to stop rambling for this video. If you liked anything that I talked about, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell. Really appreciate that. If you have questions, comments, if you've written a parser and found unit testing to be helpful, or found unit testing to be helpful only in specific scenarios, I'd love to hear about it. Go ahead and leave a comment down below. And if you have questions that you want to hear me answer in future videos, go ahead and leave those in the comment section below as well. Thanks for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.